Do you know why Git and GitHub are essential tools for developers? Well, in today's video, this diagram will break down how they're used to store source code, track changes, and manage multiple versions of an application. You'll also learn how teams collaborate efficiently on the same project without using version control features such as branches, commits, or pull requests, without overwriting each other's code. So let's look at what Git and GitHub is and what the differences between each other are. Git is an open source version control system which records changes in a file, while GitHub is also an open source version control system, but it's a source code management tool. Git is typically installed on your device or a server, while GitHub is not really installed. Now, let's look at Git. Why Git? Why is it so important? Why is it an essential tool? Well, Git are good for two main reasons. One is that it allows you to roll back to previous versions as per the client's request. Imagine you're working with a client, you're designing a new feature, and then the client decides halfway there that no, he doesn't really want the feature. Now, in order to go back, it would be difficult if you didn't have Git. But if you had Git, you would be able to go back to the previous version while saving energy and time. Now, Git is also important for good data integration because you can track who did what using Git credentials. When you install Git, your company, your organization needs to give you an account. They need to give you your login details. And your login details and your account determines whether you're a developer or a supervisor or a manager. Now, these roles are very important because it explain which branch you're going to be working in. Now that you have your login credentials, you're going to use them to log into Git. But first, let's talk about how to install Git. I made a video on how to install Git, and I hope you check it out right now. And if you already know how to install Git, then let's talk about how to implement Git in your server. First, let's make this cloud a bit bigger. It's looking a bit small. There we go. We have a bigger cloud now. Now, let's create a file for our client. Let's say our client is called Yummy. Let's drag in our file. There's our file. Now, in our client, when we have a file, we would go inside and we would do git init. Git init creates a client to local repository. And once we have a client local repository, it also creates a master or a main branch. You would need two more important branches, such called the development branch and the staging branch. In the development branch, here is where developers write code for the new version or they edit the previous version. And in the staging branch, they do the testing of what has been written in the development branch. So they test what has been written, and if it's good, they will send a PR request to the master branch. And the master branch checks the testing and approves it for production. Now, there are four different stages that every file has to go to, regardless of which branch it came from. Let's drag it in. They're called the working area, the staging area, the local repository, and the remote repository. Now, in our working area, we create scripts or edit and create new versions. What is a script? A script is a bunch of lines of code that activates after a certain condition has been met. So if we have a script to welcome new customers, then it will activate once it notices a new user. So let's talk about, okay, so that's one example of a script. Now, if that script or lines of code or coding file is completed and looks good, they'll send it over to the staging area using git add dot. Now, in the staging area, here is where people decide on which script to submit and which script needs a bit more work on. If they decide, oh, this script, it's not there yet, they will reset it to send it back to the working area. But if it's good, they will do git commit to send it to the local repository. Commit git commit dash m basically means that, hey, I'm done with this file, I submitted it. But if they submit it and the supervisor in the staging area says no, it needs more work, they would do git revert to send it back to the staging area and git reset to send it back to the working area, where they will have to work on the file again to make it perfect. But if the supervisor say, oh, it's actually a really good file, they will do git push to send it to the remote repository where it's completed and is backed up. So in the local repository, once we do git commit, they will move it down to the master branch. And in the master branch, we'll have the managers to check all of that, and they will do the git push to the remote repository. But if they decided in the remote repository, no, it needs a bit more work, then they will get pull or get fetch to push it back to the local repository and get revert to push it back to the staging area and push it back to the working area. Now, what is a remote repository? A remote repository, let's look at a local repository first. Local repository means a repository or someplace that is in your device or in a server. And the remote repository is where you push it to. So local is something that is with you and you're working on, and remote is where you push it to. So congratulations on watching the full video. Remember, practice makes perfect. If you have any questions, please comment it in the comment section down below. I'll see you all on the next video as you continue your DevOps learning journey with DevOps Lewis.